Oh, just let me know when you guys are ready. Yeah? Hi, I am Erin Williams, and I would like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to give you all a warm welcome. Today is Laramie County Community College's Trustee Candidate Forum, sponsored by Wingspan, LCCC's student newspaper, and the Speech and Debate team. This has been a long-standing tradition promoting community and campus awareness of the issues affecting the lives of not only the students, but also the community. We would like to thank the LCCC Education Association for the refreshments, the audio-visual, and the facilities management staff for their assistance, and of course, the board candidates for their time. I would like to let you know that this is being broadcast over Optimum Cable on Channel 11. This is also going to be streamed on Wingspan Online, where it will be available on the news page. The format will be as followed. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. We will rotate the candidates who begin the first question to answer. If you exceed the 2-minute limit, you will be politely reminded that your time has expired. The timer will raise her hand, a sign indicating that you have 30 seconds left, and another sign indicating that your time has run out. Written questions from the audience will be accepted during the question and answer period. There are pieces of note cards and pens on your table. We ask that you have these within the first hour, and they will be collected after the first hour, and please give them to Raj Shulisky at the end of the first hour. The candidates are as followed. We have Bill Du Bois, Don Erickson, Misty Heil, Greg Thomas, Ed Mosher, Dave Shaw. We have one candidate that could not be with us today, and that was Christine Lummis. And I would like to ask all of the candidates to please speak into your microphone, as we are broadcasting and we would like to be able to hear you. So with all of that said, we shall begin. All right, the first question. The board has agreed to take a look at the Hines building for possible student housing. Specifically, do you support any college resources such as revenue bonds, student fees, etc., to renovate the Hines building and fill the whole downtown? And how has the announcement of development of the land south of the college affected your support of the Hines building proposal? Further, how do both of these projects affect the master plan? Bill, if you would like to start.
Well, I think that it's an interesting concept to try and bring the downtown area into work with the college. What we're examining is to see if housing might be interesting down there for either singles or married students. Obviously, there are lots of things that have to be considered, such as transportation and what have you. I don't think that it'll be involving student money, school money. It'll be supporting it for the future of having student living there. And so that would be my take on it. I think it's a worthwhile idea to consider. There's so much that needs to be checked before we actually decide to do it. I'm in a peculiar position in that my grandfather was the architect of the Hines building, so naturally I have an affinity towards it, but it'll be interesting to see what the response from the students, which are the most important, decide whether that's something they might like us to pursue further.
Thank you. Don?
I'll take this one. You can have that one for yourself. Well, as a former mayor, I see the need for the face of our community to be bright and to be cheerful and not to have this big hole in its face. As far as the community college being part of a residency program, I think the current board took the right action when they agreed to a 90-day feasibility period, at which time there are questions that have to be answered, particularly whether the students have an interest. And secondly, what are some of the pros and the cons? You know, On the face of it, it appears like it's an opportunity for doing a number of things, not only for resident needs here in the college, but also for our downtown. Relative to the area that the Lummises are proposing just to the south of here, I can't see where that's going to be in the detriment to the college at all. I would think that that's going to be something beneficial. It's going to, if that comes forward, it's a dream for the people that are the developers. There will be opportunities there, I suppose, for various types of retail activities that would be interested for the residents at the LCCC. So I see this as another indication that our community is growing. I'm talking now specifically about the Lummis project south of here. With that, then, I'll move along with you.
Thank you. Misty?
Well, in reference to the project for the Heinz building, I think that it's definitely a segue into providing enough housing for our students, and ultimately that's been an issue every semester. There are people on waiting lists. There are families who can't seem to connect with landlords to get appropriate housing for them. You know, there's not necessarily a reference sheet that we give to people that has, you know, listings of places that they can go, and so I think that this definitely is a good step towards resolving that issue, at least in the short term. While it's not necessarily something that we can definitely say right now that that's possible, I think it's definitely something that we should look into doing, and if it leads that we can do that, I don't know exactly how it would affect the master plan. I guess that would depend on the cost and sort of, I don't know how that fits into everything. I mean, building new buildings is a little bit different than just sort of revamping a building to get it ready for housing. So, and the development south of town, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if that would necessarily affect the college in a bad way either. I mean, sort of like you were saying, Mr. Erickson, that it's going to stimulate activities going on out here and ultimately maybe make it a little safer. I mean, when there's more people and more lighting and, you know, more eyes that are seeing what's going on, it's a little bit safer, I think, because we're a little way out here and, you know, things can happen. And so that I think that could be a possibility of a positive effect.
Thanks, Misty. Okay, three-part question, right? And I'll try to make sure I answer all three parts. First one I'll address is the Heinz building. Just the quick history, and it's quick history. We just found out about this project probably 2 months ago, about 3 weeks ago. We're just in what I'm going to say is a very preliminary exploratory stage. I can tell you that from my perspective, I do not think we're going to take any type of ownership position in that building. I think that our role would be to provide renters for the planned, I believe it's about 65 apartments that they want down there. And again, at our last meeting, my big question is we have to get a feel for if students do want to live downtown, because there's a little bit of ways from campus, and if it is a viable housing option, I sure want to see what the developers and the folks behind the project are going to propose. So I don't look at, I'm just kind of neutral on it right now. They need to come back to us, and we did sign a letter that we're interested in hearing what they have to say in about 90 days. So we'll see what happens with that. Development south of campus, anything that can happen around our campus here is going to be a positive. I've had some people ask me about housing over there. I would anticipate that there probably would be some housing. I will tell you that housing is tough to get on the rental side in Cheyenne, and so we'll have to see. A lot of the housing here is subsidized, and that puts a damper in a variety of folks. So, and then lastly, effect on the master plan. I don't think it's going to affect our master plan very much. I mean, our planning was to have some type of apartment-style housing that would be adjacent to campus. because those folks would need to be adjacent to campus. So it's really just a matter of how much housing we think that we can provide for folks. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the Education Association and Wingspan, the journalism department, and you folks putting this on. I think it's a great opportunity for us to respond to some questions that you folks have and perhaps help you make your decisions. With regards to the downtown Heinz building, I don't think I can add a whole lot to that other than give you my particular perspective. I see, number one, we should be open-minded as we look at this opportunity. And as the chair of the board indicated, we're just in a preliminary stage. We're trying to find out information, and that's something that we should do. I mean, we should be open to ideas that are presented to us. There's a lot of interesting aspects to having students downtown, and there's some challenges too, as pointed out, with transportation. As far as dollars and cents, again, I think at this point we're so preliminary. My mind is, this is someone else's development. Our role might be to provide a lease arrangement for students, which would give us some continuity in having housing availability. But beyond that, at this point, I really couldn't tell you, but I'm personally am not looking to LCCC putting money into that at this point. As far as the master plan and the development across the road by the Lummis family, I think that's fantastic for student opportunities out here. Not only the folks who would perhaps live in the area, but the business opportunities there and the interaction between the campus, the students, I think would be a great opportunity. Housing-wise, I think that adds some possibility there. So I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Shaw, and the Heinz building, part of the downtown development ideal is a cultural development that has a community of people who are there. And so I think the opportunity for LCCC students to live down there would be an alternative to moving to Fort Collins and the cultural venue that's sort of there. It's hard to imagine just exactly how a development across the road would provide that same sort of opportunity. So it's really up to the particular student as to whether they have the time to go across the street to the internet cafe and do their homework there or whatever. It's also depends upon the number of students who actually need this sort of housing. And there are 2 dorm projects that have been proposed, so ultimately it depends on how many students there are who need housing, what sort of housing they want. One of the factors that is going to limit even housing across the street, as it were, is transportation, because you're still going to need some sort of a way of getting students maybe from downtown to campus and back. They have to go to work, so transportation is also an issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The second question, we will start with Mr. Erickson. LCCC has the highest student fees of any community college in Wyoming at $420 each semester. At Casper College, an institution whose size is comparable to LCCC pays $216 in fees. Western Wyoming College has the lowest fees of $193. LCCC students pay a general fee, a college community center fee, a PE wellness fee, intramural sports fee, health education fee, athletics fee, high-tech fee, and facilities fee. Do you believe this amount LCCC charges is reasonable? If not, where should cuts be made?
That's a tough one. I wasn't here when the board made the decision to utilize student fees to pay for the financing of the upgrade of the cafeteria and the residence hall. I could see that a student fee would be appropriate for the cafeteria, but from my distance away from that decision-making, a student fee that goes across the board for everybody for the residency hall seems to be a bit of a stretch. That's my first review of it, and thankfully, you got a great editorial staff with the Wingspan, and you put this issue before us in your newspaper. And otherwise, I would not have been aware in my early understanding of what's going on out here at LCCC about this variance in student fees for us here at LCCC compared to around the state. It doesn't seem to be something that is received by me, at least, as quite equitable to the student to have to be paying for resident financing when not all the students are involved at the residence. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Ms. Heil.
Thank you. Student fees have been an issue for a while. Money going into programs that aren't actually up and running yet. This is a major issue for students. It should be a major issue to the board. I can't necessarily say what is fair and what's not fair. I also can't say what I would cut and what I would expand on, but I know that where this money is going needs to be looked at. We need to look very closely at what this money is being used for. We need to look at how this money is being distributed among clubs, among organizations. This should be a concern. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And, you know, being a recent graduate, I've been privy to, I guess, a more, I don't know, a deeper understanding, I guess, of the process, all the way from being a club to also sitting on the student fee allocation committee and seeing where the money is actually going. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of ways that we could better utilize that money than what we are doing. And so I think this is something that, especially because of the amount and especially because of the burden that it has on students, that we definitely need to look into this.
All right, thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Okay, fees. I think one of the things that, and again, I'm going to have to admit, I don't know as much about the fee situation as I would like to. I do know that there are two sets of fees out there. Some are assessed by the college. I believe the technology fee, et cetera, are assessed by the college. Other fees are assessed by the student government, okay? So, you know, so part of the issue is what is, you know, what is the board responsible for and what is the student government responsible for. I will tell you from the board perspective, we have become aware here fairly recently on the fee situation, and we are working towards getting quite a bit more accountability on the fees. On our financial statements and on our books, these fees are not ours. They are kept in a custodial account to be used for the purpose, and I do know that there are several of the programs that have not spent those fees, and so they are just building up, and that's something we're trying to get to the bottom of. As far as if it's fair or not, I don't know if it's fair. I think people in their own mind have to feel as though they get value out of the fees. And I would probably say that there's certain, I know some of the programs, intramural is one of them. I think this health plan is another one that we haven't gotten any value out. The money has just built up, and you got to ask the question, why did we charge the fees? So I can tell you that we do need to be competitive with the other colleges. I don't know if fees are the single decision point that a student makes when he comes to school, but we do need to be competitive. So.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mosier.
Thank you. This has been an interesting issue for a number of years, and the question about, I know when I came on the board, we were often told that the students had voted for these fees, and it was the students' money, and they would decide how to expend that money through the student fee allocation committee. And the board, I think, has been active since I've been on it, trying to understand what our role is relative to the student's role, not just in assessing the fees, but in terms of our responsibility, in terms of making sure, even though they're, so to speak, not our monies, not the general fund monies, but trying to make sure that the students are, there's correct usage according to the students. It is not in some way used improperly or not getting the biggest bang for the buck out of it. So we've been looking at that, and under the board's direction, that's something that we're getting more information on as we go along, and I think we'll have a better understanding of that by the next budget, because there's a budget process that's being reviewed. Some of the faculty and staff here are on that budget advisory committee. I know the Facilities and Finance Committee of the board has been looking at that, and we're really trying to get a handle on that issue. I would say that under the new president's leadership, one of the things that has come forward was we removed the $20 fee for admissions, which then puts us in line with all the other community colleges. So that's a step, and I think with Dr. Schaefer's leadership in this area and the board's interest in trying to make sure those fees are affordable for students and that we're not charging for things and they're not getting benefit, I think the board is being responsible in their actions on this. We can do more, and hopefully we will in a short period of time.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. One of the factors that affects fees is real use fee. For example, with computing, you often want to print something out, and I know a couple of years ago it was possible to just print whatever you wanted to print in the library or the computer lab in the building across the way. And so part of it is, you know, if you want to print, you should provide your own money for the real cost of the printing, athletic use fee. Maybe only those people that are actually using that facility should be involved with that. Another example of real cost would be health insurance. You know, maybe make it available to students or individuals who need it. And so that's, and another factor is, how does Casper College do this? If they're comparable in size, they're more residential up there. We have more, the numbers of the full-time enrollments are about the same, but the composition of them is different. So that might affect why they have less fees or not, or they may be charging people for their printing or whatever it is. But it would be interesting to look at what fees they do have, and where they don't have a fee-supported service, how that service gets provided.
Thank you. And Mr. Du Bois.
Well, I think it's wrong to have the student fee so high if the other colleges around the state are able to do with less. And of course, I'm all for the students, so I'd like to see a real study made of this. Mr. Thomas alluded to the fact that we as trustees only learned of this comparison fairly recently in terms of the large difference between what we charge and what the others. But as he also mentioned, let's face it, the students have selected to do these fees, but maybe they need to think and revamp their thoughts too, because the students that are here now aren't the ones that maybe set the fees in the past. So I go along, we need to study it and check it out and certainly make it as reasonable for everybody as possible. Since Mr. Moser took personal privilege, I'm going to also say that I'd like to apologize to the Wingspan staff for when they took the survey that was sent out. I did not get it, or if I did get it, I didn't see it. And as a result, I was in the Nebraska for a week, and I didn't get, when the wingspan called me, the house sitter said, well, I don't know what this is about or what's going on, and I said, well, I don't either. And so she just deleted the calls, and that was the end of it, and I never took the survey, and I did call Miles and Taylor about this, but I feel very badly that I was there and not saying what the questions were and so on. I still don't know what they were other than what was in the paper that way, but anyway, I did want the wingspan to know that I apologize for that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Heil, you'll be the first to answer this question. How do you define the concept of a shared governance model of the board-college relations?
The shared governance model, I think, for me, without necessarily getting into the specifics, because they aren't necessarily known at this point. I mean, this is something that is extremely fresh and extremely new. You know, I know that we're looking at other models and seeing what have worked for other organizations, you know, really trying to make this fit, especially for our college and for our situation. And ultimately, the support behind it comes from this wanting of a connection between all levels that affect the college. So all the way from the students, all the way from faculty, staff, administrators, the president, the board. You know, the more we can sort of spread out the communication versus it just going up and down, I think that there's less room for miscommunication. People are going to understand the processes that were used to make decisions. And if people have this forum to give feedback, to give input, I think that it just really creates this cohesive culture that I think LCCC really wants. And I think this is an opportunity to start doing that. So I'm definitely behind the shared governance model and really would look forward to an opportunity to help move that forward.
All right, thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Okay, define the shared governance model. It's a very gray area. Let me just say a couple things about shared governance as at least I see it. As trustees, we do have responsibilities, and there's some pretty well-defined responsibilities. We're responsible for approving a budget. We're responsible for providing an environment in which the college can govern itself, us included. We're responsible for ensuring that there is some planning and guidance given to the management of the college. And lastly, we are responsible for interfacing with the community. So to take shared governance, you need to understand what I think our major responsibilities are. Basically, it's come about in that we need help. We're not here every day. We do not work in the college on a day-to-day basis. We need the people that work at the college and are involved in the activities at the college, students, et cetera, to give us input and to give us advice and to give us answers or potential answers as to how to do things around the college. And that's really what this model is meant to do. The details of it will be worked out. We've worked out quite a few of those. We've said to the college community that you need to tell us who you want to formally be. I believe it's College Council is the major entity that is to provide us with any type of input they would like. If they think there's an issue out in the college, we want to hear about it. We can't hear about it if we're not here on a day-to-day basis. So shared governance is really a way for the college community to provide input to themselves as far as how they run on a day-to-day basis, but to also provide input to us on the things that we're responsible for.
All right, thank you.
Complex issue, and I feel like we've been around the horn on this before. We've had discussion of shared governance in previous years, and even had a model that was somewhat in place here at the college for a period of time. But I think we're really starting with a fresh slate now as we look at shared governance. And the responsibility, I think, is pretty tremendous when you look at shared governance on all parties, because we're talking about gathering information, you're talking about sharing that information, and you're talking, at least to me, it means that there is an open discussion and clear discourse on issues, and that those decisions then, once they're made, people have to carry that back. Just like the board, you know, we disagree on different issues, but we have discussion, we come to an agreement, and we move forward with those, and we support those objectives. And I think through shared governance, that's a way of expanding that type of operation, where people truly do feel like they're a part of the process, that their input is there, they're represented, and that's where I think really the key is. People who are on that council, at least as it's envisioned now, I think it's critical that they work with the people they represent. Without that, I think I'm not so confident that it will work, but I really do support the concept and want the idea to work and work well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Thank you. LCCC and the other community colleges in Wyoming are something like an Indian reservation or the Vatican. They are immune to a lot, that mean they govern themselves. There's not a state-imposed external auditor. The board instead selects the auditing firm, and they write the scope of work. So the board is their own external auditor. It's that closed. It's a very closed system. And it's so, in the past, it was sort of like an oligarchy. There was the rule by the few, although with informed, you know, they just didn't do whatever they wanted to do. Maybe under Hammond even could be described as a dictatorship in the most literal sense. So the political economy, when you have people who are involved with it becoming stakeholders, that is, they have some voice in actual decision. It's not just window dressing. They actually have input on actual decisions. I think that's incredibly important and vital. I think it could be extended at the Eastman School of Music, and I think at Juilliard, your tenure committee has a student on it, and they vote, and they know if you can conduct or play the fiddle. And so I think that would be very valuable. I think another way of extending shared governance would be to give more franchise to the bulk of the teaching faculty. The adjuncts comprise 70%. They don't have contracts. They're not organized in a meaningful way at comparable places like Pima Community College in Tucson, and they should have more votes than just one. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Du Bois?
Well, I think that what Mr. Moser said probably explains it the best, that we want to have a type of government here where the students, the faculty, the staff, everybody has a stake in what's being decided and how things are working. I suppose this is being very blunt, but I have to say that I came to this board 4 years ago, and the first 2 years, I basically was told, oh, everything's beautiful, everything's wonderful, no problems, everything's quick, and I had no part in actually making any major decisions other than they'd say, no, we vote on this, okay, we vote on this, okay. And all of a sudden, 2 years ago, we began to realize out of the people in the community, as well as students, as well as faculty, as well as staff, coming to us as board members and saying, look, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't going right. And as a result of that, we began to realize that things weren't the way they should be, and we began becoming more interested in what's going on. So it's a matter of us being involved in the shared governance more, as well as the students, as well as the faculty and staff. I've got to say that none of us as trustees want to come out here and start directing the programs, telling how this should be. I'm not going to tell you how you run your surgery program or anything else, but it's just nice to know what's going on and how it's going and what's happening, and that's my idea, that it's a great idea, and I hope it follows through good.
All right, thank you. Mr. Erickson.
I think the three current trustees have pretty well expressed a definite desire to move forward with an openness, with a shared governance. Shared governance is kind of like mother love and country. How can you speak against something like that? So I'm looking forward to being part of opening up this communication that appeared to go away a few years ago, and now is coming back with the leadership of Dr. Schaefer and the current board. I'm really enthused with what's happening. I think listening to the three current trustees and also observing the Board of Trustees meetings, they are definitely moving forward in a open communication with all the various individuals and organizations that should be involved in making this the best community college in the Rocky Mountains. And I look forward to being part of that process.
All right, thank you. Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
how would you deal with the following scenario? A member of your church or other community organization that you belong to approaches you with a lengthy story of how they were poorly treated by a faculty or staff member at LCCC. How would you respond to this person, and what would you do with that information?
Well, it's not a hypothetical. I will tell you exactly how it's been handled a variety of times. We as board members, and that's part of our governance model, are not responsible for the details, but we are responsible to communicate those details. We go to the president and explain the situation the best as possible, and it is the president's responsibility to resolve that. Then the other thing that we do is make sure that it does get resolved in some manner. So it's a pretty simple process, and it doesn't always happen that way, but if people do have problems, and I'm very open to folks, I say to them, if there's anything you want to talk to me about, it's open. It's open. You can talk to me anytime, anywhere, and I do explain to them the process, which is we have one employee, and he is responsible for dealing with those types of issues. Sometimes they're financial aid. I can tell you financial aid is one of the ones that happens most often. And then we make sure that it gets followed up with. So.
All right, thank you.
I think Greg did an excellent job with that. We do. We get comments, and personally, I really appreciate that. I think that's part of the system working. It's not a matter of, oh, sure, you'll get tattletale kind of stuff from time to time, but that's not typically what we're getting. We're getting comments from people who are concerned about the college, who are concerned about the services they didn't receive or did receive. And let me tell you, too, a lot of people are coming up with very positive comments, too. This is, I know that seemed to be a little more on the negative side in terms of the question, and I'm not being Pollyannish about that. I mean, there are a lot of people that have very positive things to say about the services received here. But when there are challenges that they bring forward, Dr. Schaefer listens to those. I myself and other board members, we've talked to other board members about them. We share those concerns, and we really do try to pursue, I shouldn't say try, I think we're good about following up, trying to make sure that those things are resolved. Now, they're not always going to be resolved, I think, to all parties' satisfaction in a short period of time, because trust me, one thing I've learned on this board is that as much as you'd like to go real rapidly, sometimes things just have to go somewhat more slowly so that you get full information, you get the whole story, and then it takes a while to implement. Sometimes there are other things that go very quickly. But yeah, I would agree with the chair of the board that the way typically I find board members working with this, and it's the way I like to work with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shaw?
I have nothing to add to that other than complaints can be sort of like a reference question in the reference desk in the library. You want to find out what's really sort of going on. You want to try to verify what they're saying, get them to comment more detailed, because that way you can bring to the president a more detailed, this is what I was told, this is what I think is going on, maybe. When I appeared at Albin and Carpenter and School District Number 2 and Pines Bluffs and Burns, experiences with registration and financial aid were mentioned as being problematic to people in the past. So I know that that's one area where there was really bad customer service. I've had my own students experience it, so I know about it. So I hope that Student Services is working to sort of reduce those types of problems. At one point, I wish I was running the registration department, because I would follow up every single thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Du Bois?
Well, it's been alluded, and it's true, we did have a lot of, this is not a hypothetical thing, because we have had a lot of students complaining and people complaining about the financial office. We do have a new vice president of student services, and I'm sure she's going to take care of it, and a lot of it was taken care of in the interim. But it's one of those things where I've always felt that anybody in the community that would say something or tell me something, that it's my responsibility to see that it goes to the president and that he dispenses the information to the where it has to go if it's really of that nature. The other issues that we usually have had problems with through the time is with the security, some of the security issues, and we now have a new security chief, and I think this will help out with some things too that have taken place in the past. But I'm very open to having anybody tell me any problems, and I'm very open whether it's a student, a faculty member, or a staff member, or a member of the community, because as trustees, we represent all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Erickson?
Bill, are you my twin? That's what has been said. I don't have anything really to add. The policy is clear. It should be followed, that if there is a problem, and we, as board members, if I should be fortunate to be on the board, have a responsibility to carry a concern that any of our constituents out there or anyone in the county might have to the president, and to stay with it to make sure that there is a follow-through and a resolution to whatever the problem may have been.
All right, thank you. Ms. Heil?
Well, I guess the only thing that I can really add is that I maybe wonder if there needs to be a means for people to translate this information, not just going through the board. And I understand there's going to be situations where you run into someone and it's just out of convenience that they see you, and so they just want to go ahead and tell you and let you know what was going on. But at the same time, I wonder how many other people are out there that have issues that aren't saying anything, and really how we can, I don't know, encourage more of that sort of communication, whether it's students who are having issues, whether it's, you know, a faculty or staff member that's having an issue. I mean, I know that there's, I forget what it's called. You know, there's the care team. Well, there's a care team for student issues, but then who handles issues with the faculty and staff, and is that more of a human resources thing? But I guess, I mean, that's I guess my only question. And, you know, if the policy is that that information is then given to the president, I can agree with that. He's our, he would be the one employee, like you were saying, so that's the person that information would be directed towards. But I guess my worry is that what is wrong with some of the other forms that we have for people to relay this information. And I don't know, I guess I wouldn't necessarily want the board to have that responsibility of what maybe a human resources or like a service forum or something. I'm not sure.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mosier, you will be the first to answer this question. What do you see as the most significant challenge that LCCC faces in the next 2 years, and what suggestions do you have for dealing with that said challenge?
Well, there's significant challenges out there. You could go a couple of ways. I know you're asking for one, so in my mind, I'm having this battle right now because I'm concerned about cost. I mean, we all understand the challenge we have facing us with increasing costs, and we had an earlier question on student fees, so maybe I'll let you know that we're working on that. You've already heard discussion on that, so let me move to the other one, and that has to be facilities. And facilities is a large question, not just our master plan, but facilities for all 7 community colleges. We have a funding issue that is a statewide challenge, and it's something that I think we as trustees have to continue to work with folks in our community, our legislators, and the governor to try to find a more effective way of funding facilities. And the current process that we have for colleges to push their projects to the front in terms of they're assessed by the Community College Commission, they're ranked by the commission using a formula that's supposed to be as unbiased as possible, but that commission then can still make some adjustments. And as we found out last time, the governor also makes adjustments. And what that really means is, are we going to have funding where colleges, we clearly understand it's 50% state support, 50% local funding? Or are we going to have some other variation of that? There's just a lot of things that are not complete. You know, we don't exactly understand where that's at. So we have to work, I think, really hard in that area to make sure we've got facilities to serve our students.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. I think maybe the problem of declining enrollment and the so-called continuation problem are certainly an important issue in the next 2 years. Declining enrollment, I think it declined about 300 people from last fall to this fall in terms of equivalent full-time enrollments. And related to that is the whether people complete their program, certificate, or degree. And certainly the cost, as Ed said, is a factor that influences people. But I think another factor is the type of people that tend to go to community colleges. They tend to be parents. They may be parents, perhaps single parents. They have to work. They have transportation thing because you know, they may have shared custody. So all of these factors complicate the amount of time they have to spend on a campus and to do schoolwork and to complete things. I think one of the Wyoming Community College Commission has for a long time considered distance learning and online learning to be an effective remedy for community college students because you can come home and you don't have to drive anywhere. You can, whether you start at 8 or 10 or 9 o'clock, you can do your work. You've got library facilities right there. Anyone can do those classes, and I think organizing a situation where you have a unit that has a fairly complete set of classes, online and distance learning, and is directed would save a lot of money, as the commission suggests, and also be more convenient to people, especially rural ones. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Du Bois.
Well, one of the things that we face at this college is like all over the country, and that is what they call completion. Trying to get students to complete their courses as to get a degree. A lot of young people don't realize, and older people too, that having that piece of paper that says you actually completed the degree down the road will be extremely important if you have to change jobs or move to a different situation. We have an issue where the job market is so anxious to get some of our trained people, especially, we have an excellent workforce development program here at this school. And as a result, people leave before they've completed their courses because they have learned enough that they get these jobs that the market is calling for, and we still feel like they need to complete. Another thing is with the GED situation. One of the things we were told at one conference in Casper was, by this one gentleman, was that